So this is one of the sections that I have the quilting finished on. I will go back and do some stuffing in the leaves. And I don't know if this is going to show. I've got some of the areas filled in quite heavily, and others I'm just doing this echo quilting where I just quilt around and around and around all the shapes until it fills in. So that's what I'm working on now. Here's the section that I'm working on. I have some of it done, and you can't do the whole thing at once. So this is a 22-inch hoop, and it's on a stand. The hoop rotates. It's kind of squeaky right now because it's been so humid that the wood's kind of swollen a little bit. So I start by doing a close outline stitch all around all the applique, and I'll show you that, and then I kind of keep going. I have the layers basted together with safety pins, and I take those out as I go. Mostly I take them out in the whole area that's hooped so that they don't get in the way. The needle is a between needle, and that means it's a little shorter and a little stouter than a sharp. And I just scoot in here. And I do my quilting probably different than what you've seen before. I hold the needle like this, and I don't use a thimble anymore. I used to, but I've gotten to the point where I don't even need it. And I don't know if this is going to show, but my under finger is, my index finger pushes up from the bottom, so I've got a hand under the hoop and pushing up, and the needle goes in, and then that under finger pushes it back up and out the top, and I go back in and then up again. And when that needle goes in from below, my finger comes I don't stab my finger. My finger, I use the edge of my finger and I push up from underneath, so it goes like that. So I never really poke my finger, although it looks like I do. That's actually from when I do my that's from stabbing my finger with a blood tester for testing my blood sugar. Anyway, so it's in and out like that. Anyway, that's how I do it. Everybody's got their own way, and you'll likely see most people do this differently, but this is how I get it done. And the challenge for me, as always, is getting decent camera angle and lighting so you can really see what I'm doing. And I'm trying a different setup today, and I don't know if it's going to work or not, because the way I have it set up, I cannot see what's showing up in the camera screen. So I need to sort of take it on faith that it's showing up, and we'll see. When I did that last stitch, it pulled up a thread from underneath the applique, so I'm going to have to trim that off. You see that? I don't know if it's even going to show to you, but there's a stray thread right there that I need to trim. Anyway, the applique pieces I did with needle turn applique. I cut the pieces out of paper like a giant snowflake, laid it onto the fabric, pinned it into place, and then traced around it, then cut it out, leaving seam allowance all around the edges, then basted the whole thing onto the blue fabric, and then I did needle turn applique to get it all appliqued down, and that took a really long time. This is a big quilt. It's about 85-ish inches square, and so there's a lot of applique on it. And then I went back and did all of the chain stitch embroidery on the rest of the design. So many months later, I got it all that work done, and I layered the backing, batting, and top together for hand quilting, and I did all of the basting. Again, I used safety pins, and I don't use a whole lot of them because the hoop itself does most of the holding, and as I go, I start the quilting in the very center of the quilt, and I kind of work my way out to the edge, and as I go, if there's any wrinkles or anything, with my hand underneath, after I get it in the hoop, I slide it across and feel if there's any wrinkles or anything, and kind of work to smooth it all out in the hoop, and the hoop holds it together, so I don't really need a whole lot of pins. They just get in the way. The batting that I'm using is this is wool, and this particular wool is Hobbs Tuscany wool, and it's really nice for hand quilting. It holds up beautifully after all the quilting is done. I've got several quilts where I've used it, and I can wash and dry them and they don't shrink. It's nice and light and breathable, but warm at the same time, so it's a great quilt. It doesn't, it breathes, which is nice, and it has a decent loft. It's loftier than cotton, I think, and shows your stitches are more defined when you have a loftier batting, but because it's such a fluffy fiber, it is not as dense as cotton. It's airier, so the needle just glides through it real easily. So I'm at about the point where, to me, that's the point where I really want to not be quilting anymore, because that's just so short that it becomes hard to not unthread itself. So what I do is I'm going to go back in, and I'm going between the layers, and the needle is going back to back down that seam line, but it's between the layers, and I can feel on the bottom if that needle comes through. So I want to make sure that I hide that thread inside the quilt, and I go in a couple of times there, and then back once the other direction, and that is enough to hold that that thread in, and I don't need to make a knot. This is the thread I'm using. This is a 40 weight cotton. This was not one of those that they sell that's specific to hand quilting. The hand quilting thread is often glazed, which is to say there's a kind of a slick finish on the thread, and that makes hand quilting actually easier, I find, but this one's not a problem. I don't, so rethreading the needle here. So I don't feel that I need to put a thread conditioner on it. Some people will, they sell a product called, I think it's Thread Haven or something like that. Comes in a little square container, and you glide the thread through it, and that puts a little bit of a smooth coating on the thread. Some people will do that with beeswax. Both of them are fine. I'm not feeling that I need it on this, so I'm not doing it. So to restart, I do a quilter's knot. I take a little bit of the thread and put it on over the top of the needle, and pinch that between my finger and my thumb with a little bit of the needle has to be sticking out here, and I 1, 2, 3 times around, and then I slide those 3 loops around underneath. Then I pull through, and there's the knot. Now I did it with a little bit of an extra amount of the tail on it. If you want, you can cut that extra off, but I'm not going to because I can hide it. So I want the first stitch to come out here, so that's where the needle needs to come out of the fabric, but I'm going to go in quite a bit away from that and bring that needle up where I want it to start that row of stitching, and I'll pull it, and then that knot just pops right into the fabric, and that'll hold it on this end. And when I'm ready to finish, I'll cut it off on the other. A lot of people will use much shorter lengths of thread than I do. I've heard people say only use an 18-inch piece of thread, or only a piece as long as your arm. I use about 1.5 yards, I think, because I don't like to have to change it that often. The thing about the thread is, or the length of the thread, if your thread is going to wear out, and some people tell me they have this problem, that the thread, as they're working, the thread starts to weaken and it breaks. And if that's going to happen, it's going to happen right at the eye where all the pressure is on it. Every stitch is pulling on that spot where the thread is through the needle. So as you go, and as you quilt, continue to remember to keep moving that thread along on the needle so that it's not always in the same spot, and you won't have that problem. If you advance the thread a little bit every couple of stitches, then the pressure point on that needle will change, and you won't get your thread wearing out and breaking. If you do a whole bunch of stitches all without moving the thread, it will, in fact, wear that thread out, and it could break there. And that's kind of a pain when your thread breaks, because you've got nothing left to tie a knot off with, so you may have to actually unstitch some of it to be able to finish off. So right here, I had a little bit of a loop that I've got to get out. There. if I'm trying to do this in less than ideal lighting because the lighting isn't good for me to see what I'm doing, but I think it's better for the camera, so we'll see. I've been working on this quilt for over a year now, at least a couple of hours a day. So this is not something that is a quick project, but it is nothing difficult, really. This stitching is just really a lot of repetition. I enjoy it because it's something I can do without having to put a lot of taxation on my brain. Of course, when you're first learning and starting to do it, it takes some good degree of concentration before the stitching becomes second nature to you, and you have to really, when you're beginning, you really have to think about what you're doing for every stitch. But after you've done it a million times, you can sort of go into autopilot mode and not have to worry about it. So after I get around this whole side of the applique, then I'm going to go back over here and go around the embroidery side. Then I'll do another row. When I get to this section, I will have to, I'll do basically the same procedure, but these rows are very, very close together so that it creates a completely filled in like this. So that's what I'm going to do for a little bit, and then we'll come back and I'm going to try, the sun is starting to go down, so I'm going to have to turn a light on, and we'll see how that works. So I have gone around part of this applique here, and I just wanted to show you how I'm going to work this out. What I do is I don't mark it, I do it by eye, and that takes maybe a little practice to be able to try and get some uniformity in your spacing, but for me it's actually easier to do it by eye than it is to mark it, because sometimes if I tried to mark exactly, let's say I was going to do a quarter of an inch, and I mark a quarter of an inch, and then I move over and do another quarter and another, I might end up with a section where there's 3/8 of an inch, or an oddball space left over. If I just do it by eye, I can sort of fake the difference from one side to another, and make them the spacing not exactly the same, but it feels normal because it's I've varied it enough to make it work. And I don't know if that makes any sense or not, but I find that if I just do it by eye, I can sort of cheat the difference in spacing and make it look more uniform. I can't always go around an entire shape. So in some places, like this section here where it's all quilted in, that was from what I had in the hoop before I moved it. So now I'll come back and I'll have to connect to those sections as I go around the spacing on this side. So part of getting this to work is sort of knowing where you need to start and stop, but that just comes with practice also. And again, if it makes it easier, you can certainly mark that before you start. It's not a problem to do some marking first, but what I do is I just try to keep a consistent space between the rows as I go, and that's what I did here. I did again I quilted right up to the edge, and then I did a row a little bit out from that, and now I'm doing another one a little bit out from that, and you just keep going around and around until you fill that whole space in. And once it's filled in all the way to the center, then I'll rehoop it, work on another area. The quilting in this area is done the same way as I've done it here, but very much closer together. Let me see if I can. So it's the same, it's quilted around and around, but way closer together than it is here. But it's the same thing, just row after row of quilting around and around until it's filled in. So that's the basic amount of quilting. Let me also this is what I'm going to be doing on the outside edges beyond the applique, and over here you can see some of it where I've filled in the quilting in the middles of those shapes. Now these are done the same way. That's quilted around and around and around to the center until that whole space is filled in. So it's done just like this, where it's simply rows of quilting following the shape. So basically it's all echo quilting. It's just some of it is much more dense than others. So anyway, that is what I'm doing, and as I said, I've been working on this for about a year, and I think I might be just a little bit past halfway done, and that's a lot of quilting. And I'm not going any slower right now than I normally do, so this is why it takes long. This is why I've been working on it for a year. This is, right now, this is my normal speed, and you can see that once in a while I'll get on a roll and get several stitches in a row that are pretty fast, but when you start having to twist and turn and go around things, it'll slow you down. So lots more to go, but it's more of the same. So I'll post some more when I get a little bit more done. But for now, happy stitching.